time.
It is. Here comes Lomir.
Where? Where's Lomir? That guy owes me money.
Hey, he owes me money too. Waldo hitting us up with 300 bits before we even get started.
Yay!
Quiet on the set.
All right. Quiet on the set. You're listening to WRFB Radio Free Britannia. Coming to you live from Deltona, Florida. With two idiots misinterpreting the news so you don't have to. Lunch with Laz and Jack.
Greetings, everybody. This is Laz.
And this is Jack. Welcome to another glorious Thursday on Lunch with Laz and Jack and Lily. She has made her way to my desk. But yes, welcome to everybody so that way you can listen to myself and Laz interpret the Shroud of the Avatar news so you don't have to do anything other than question your own personal life choices and ours. Because, yes, and we got the stuff.
Yes,
Yay.
indeed. And of course, Waldo at 300 bits right before we started. That's going to get him a mystery game key. And he got himself a copy of Rebel Galaxy Outlaw to go with the copy of Rebel Galaxy that he won just the other day. So congratulations to Waldo there. And Waldo said he had 350 mail messages for most sales, mostly from Point West. I'm glad to see the messages can exceed 100 without being lost. Yes, you can get over 100 when it's being automatically generated by the game, but if somebody tried to send you actually physical mail, that would not work. It'd just say mailbox is full.
Mailbox full.
Yes, which, again, one of those mailbox problems that why can the game send you over 100 but nobody else can? Why are we capped at 100? But that's a story for another day.
Not. Why don't we have a sent mailbox?
Yeah. And damn, 350 sales, man. That's a lot. Have you not been logging in, Waldo, or what's the story on that? That one I got to know. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for the answer, welcome to today's show. It is Thirsty Thursday, August 10th, 2023. And somebody's got a birthday coming up tomorrow. I don't know who that might be.
No idea.
I don't
No
know.
clue.
That's right. But the giveaways are open. Exclamation, I love free shit. Exclamation, bundle me to get in on the action. And of course, as you can see, no technical difficulties today, thank goodness. So we won't have to spend
No. Yeah.
15 minutes troubleshooting audio problems. Although I still don't know. I got up this morning and logged into my computer, and I didn't log in, but just got on, turned everything on, and looked at my
Things
volume
worked?
settings, and Discord was muted again. I don't know why.
Oh. I don't know. But I do see that I have a Discord update.
Yeah, I got that this morning too, which
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but
yeah.
I have another Discord update. But yeah. Oh man.
Well,
So
that
you ready
says it
for
was
the
about 3
fun stuff?
weeks that he's been since he's
Oh,
logged in, but the most he's had over time
yes.
was 10 or 12 sales. He suspects someone was trying to corner the market. What were they buying? That would be the next fun question.
It wasn't scrolls from Laz and Jack.
Yeah, definitely not, because we buy those low cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
The low cost.
And then Lily is not laying down yet. She's still standing.
Wolf hats +9 weapons and armor. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe one day they will fix the pluses on things, because pluses on gear don't mean shit other than telling you that
They've been modified.
they've been modified, but
Maybe
not
one day we'll
actually
get
doing
those
damage
swords of
or anything
dragon
else.
slaying, or swords of cobalt slaying, or
Oh yes.
those swords, those weapons that if you kill so many items they become enchanted automatically. But
Yeah.
promises. Yeah, it is what it is.
No
But
clue.
as many of you know who have been here the last couple of days, we've been doing a video recap of a video that
Yes.
was posted out there last week, and I promised this week that we would go through it with the fine-tooth comb and discuss this video. So today,
Oh
without
yeah.
further hesitation, we
Uh,
we left off at where we were talking about property yesterday. So we're going to pick up
property
right
deeds
there.
and stuff like that.
And
Yeah.
let's see, does my thing doesn't pick up there either. My thing doesn't pick up there either.
Well, are you ready to hit play?
Yeah, I gotta fix something here real quick.
Okay.
Gotta fix
Yes,
something
even
here
Diablo
because
1 had a better naming system for weapons and armor. Yes.
there it is. All right.
Okay.
All right. Let me
3.
turn. Hold on. I will. I gotta get rid of the game audio in the background so that's not annoying
Okay.
as all get out here. There we go. And count it in.
3, 2, 1, play.
Of the game's ability to appeal to the old school audience, the audience who was the target of Richard to fund the game in the first place. On the other hand, the positive reviews mostly speak of expecting what is to come and how good it was going to be, not of what it currently was. They talked of the foundation for the future, about a trustworthy man with a capable team and the building blocks to create the next great gaming experience. When they did discuss the current game, they said it was buggy, it lacked content, lacked clear vision, and was almost entirely placeholder as a game in Richard's own words. But at least it was playable, it was real, and this set it apart from almost all other Kickstarter projects, let alone MMORPGs. Of course, time would fix these things, these problems that people were talking about. Time would create the game people had paid millions of dollars for. Unfortunately, time also revealed Richard's dream for an altogether different experience from what was initially promised. Moving forward, by 2016, the game was in a much better shape in terms of playable content, though still nowhere near close to being a fully released game. The cash shop, however, was coming along real well. Players who missed out on the ground floor of a Kickstarter pledge and looking to own their own land in this ambitious new game were directed to what they called the Crown Store. As Richard said during an interview, quote, "To be a property owner, you really need to be in the game for $100 to $150. And this price went through the roof if you wanted to own something luxurious. In fact, the price for a castle was around $12,000 US. That isn't to say you couldn't work towards some of the lower tier housing and land for in-game currency, but the top end stuff was entirely restricted to the pay pigs, and pay they did. This was not a new concept in online worlds. Garrett's famed Ultima Online had players selling their prime housing locations on eBay for thousands of dollars all the way back in 1997, but that was against the rules, and this time Garrett was designing the game around being the dealer of these goods instead.
All right, stop there. So,
Okay.
yeah, if you notice the price posted there, that the castle was sold for $1,500 compared to selling a castle deed, which actually was a pledge. You didn't just get the deed for that; you got a whole lot more for the $12,000. But the big
Yeah.
perk was the castle lot deed. And
And
well, go ahead.
I wanted to say, so the idea really spawned from like 1997, 1998. Someone put a castle on eBay and it sold for $10,000. Now, he
Okay,
wasn't able to find that listing, but he found another one from a couple years later when someone was selling the starting bid started at $1,500. And
right.
Conjure
Okay,
Dragon's like, that was a nice horse drawn wagon in the video. That was from uh
pre-concept art.
no. That was from like release 4 or 5 or something like that
Was there actually a
on the
horse-drawn
overworld.
wagon on the overworld back then? I didn't come in until
Yeah.
13 when it opened up full
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
I always
So
thought that was
it
pre-concept.
no, it was not pre-concept. It was part of the overworld map where it's like you could see like people like traveling around the overworld map, but that got killed at some point in time.
But yeah, the point is that it actually was possible from the beginning to again, if you horse traded, you could use in-game gold to buy stuff. Now, I don't know if anybody has actually
Yeah,
ever bought a castle deed for in-game gold, but highly possible. And he just
I
alludes
suspect
to the
it's
fact.
happened.
Yeah, I'm sure it has, but as he just alludes to the fact that you can get smaller properties, with the in-game currency, which again is,
Yeah,
stretching it quite a bit. But I do like the
yeah,
comment that he was going to be the purveyor of all that. But they also fails to mention, and again, that this is why people hopped
oh yeah,
on board to this game was because of what happened in Ultima Online. That's why a certain website
and the
that was opened.
change in the change in the direction towards, hey, you know what? The gray market is going to exist. It's not a black market. It's more of a gray market, and we're not going to do anything
It
to
was
about
a
it.
secondary market. I wouldn't even call it a
Yes, a
gray
secondary.
market. That,
Yeah.
that and that was totally planned by Richard N. Starr.
Yes.
Okay, and if anybody wants to question that, I have a 2.5, 3 hour video from back in
Oh yeah.
2014, 15 or 16. I'm sorry, 15 or 16, where we go over this in quite in depth. That even Richard paid for things in other games because again,
In WoW.
time equals
Yes.
money. And if you
Yeah.
don't have the time, but you do have the money, you should be able to buy certain items instead of having to spend hours and hours and hours of gameplay. And yeah, Coswald bought his town with gold. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
Uh, and let me know when towns are selling for $100. You might be able to find somebody trying to get out of the game.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I recently actually offered up one of my towns to somebody who was looking, and I went below sales cost, and I was promptly told that my price wasn't even close. He could get a town for half of that price, which he was saying
Yeah.
that he can get for about $300. At which point I said, "Well, then go buy it for
Good
$300."
luck. Yeah.
And actually, he told me he can get a Crossroads for $300,
Wow.
not a Holdfast. And that's when I said, "Okay, well, good luck with that. You go buy that."
Yeah.
And
Go do that. Yeah.
oh, but I don't have the money right now. Yeah, so I call
Yeah.
bullshit on that one. I made you a very fair offer, and you're telling me that you can get them, but you're in the market, but you don't have the money, which means you weren't in the market. You were fishing for something that you just thought you might be able to get dirt cheap. And yeah,
Yeah.
so anyway, and of course anybody's looking for maybe a holdfast under sale value, reach out to me. I might be willing to reopen the negotiations on that. So, but definitely
Oh
not
yeah.
$100. Definitely
Oh
not.
hell no.
And
Yeah.
when I sold my last town, I'll just throw this out there for anybody, which was underground at the time. It was a holdfast nonetheless. Um, I allowed the person to make payments over time, and once the payments were complete, then the transfer happened. So I might be willing to do that as well. But anyway, moving right along. Yeah, Richard was going to be the purveyor of all this because
Yeah.
Richard knew
Well,
that exactly what he was doing because he knew that this would be a UOS game and people were going to want to buy, sell, trade, do all
well,
that good stuff.
I will say if they were smart at the very beginning, they would have instituted a system like Steam does in games where you have a player marketplace and then from there you allow people to list an item up for sale and then it's automatically pulled from their inventory in held in escrow. The person can turn around and say,
Right.
hey, I don't want to get rid of this, because every single item has a unique identifier on the back end.
Now,
The
here's the
issue.
big question. If that was the original plan, okay,
Yeah.
and as you said, they could have just, why didn't they just, if, instead of
Well,
disavowing secondary sales altogether, why didn't they just, again, open their own marketplace, like you said, inside the game or attached, outside the game where people could list it. And just like they did with the Merits app and a couple other things where you could do this, that, the other thing, and then it would drop it in game or take it out of the game, you would list it, say, on a vendor, someplace like an auction house, but not an auction house.
oh
There
yeah,
would be a vendor where you could offer it up for sale. And once it was on that, people could go to the website and pay for it and they would take the cut. They would take the
yeah, oh
10% cut of
absolutely,
it.
yeah.
Why didn't they just do that instead of, uh, you know,
Well,
uh,
you have to remember that the tech director at the time was anti RMT
it still is.
and still is. It's one where it's like, okay, so this was part of the original plan, but then you have a guy that is against it, so he's going to do everything in his power to not allow that tech to flourish, right? I mean that's why places like Shroud Marketplace exist, is because it's to fill that void. Um, and especially when they killed any kind of RMT transactions on the forums and in the Discord channel and everywhere else, it's like you set up the game around RMT. You set up the game around the concept of rares. You set up the game around the concept of, hey, land is valuable and going to be scarce. You like, yes, we missed all of these things through negligence, incompetence, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But going to the idea of the the inclusion of the Crown Store, and the shift from buying and selling things on the website. And that part of that's because people really started bitching about the asset flipping for cash.
Well,
And
see,
noting,
the people who
yeah,
missed out on the stuff, and that's why we got this is why we can't have nice things type thing. You aren't
yeah,
here, so now you're going to complain that you have to pay a premium. And just a note to all you out there, especially Vovan and Bridge Troll. Nightbot's been a moderator in the channel, but I just added a new feature in there for
oh,
some
yeah,
uh, I wouldn't say advertising, but for promotional reasons. And Nightbot still had all of its spam filters on, which I've just disabled across the board. So there should be no more problems with any of that getting blocked. I mean, it was just the excess emojis that it blocked, but
yeah,
those are all now disabled. So we should be back to our regular no moderation BS on my channel here, because you guys know I don't believe in that, except for those stupid
spammers,
need 1 million
spam
followers, pay
spammers.
us. Yes, then we ban those guys just outright, because we have fun with that. Yes. So you can say the
Yes.
seven dirty words, or unlimited caps, or
Oh man.
unlimited emotes, and add links and all that good stuff.
Yes. Oh man.
So
Bridge
but
Troll dropping the F bomb.
he had to test that to make sure it was true, which I don't
Yeah.
blame him.
But it like, okay, I'd like to thank Kira for trying to expand it, but this is one for yesterday. At the end of the show was a question whether or not he was a backer or a player, and my answer is going to be probably not. He, like, during his research for this, he may have gotten one of the free to play accounts, but he was not around for the early shit,
Well,
any of it.
I would tend to take a
Yeah.
stab at. He was a backer who got a sour taste in his mouth, which caused him to go off and
I
yeah,
don't think he was a
yeah.
backer.
Why would you put a hit piece out like this if you had no skin in the game? Okay, that's my
Well,
question.
I believe Kira has done lots of pieces on lots of different games. So if you go to his, open up a
Uh,
new tab
I,
and
I I
bring out,
really can't do that right now on the screen I'm on. So
yeah, you would actually see that he does uh, all kinds of videos on all kinds of shit. And I
so,
believe he's done lots of games.
so
And
he's not quite of an idiot critic like we are.
no, he actually has 100,000, 300,000 followers or something like that. So almost 400,000 followers. So he's
Exposing
actually
all the
getting paid
bullshit
by
of
this shit.
crowdfunded games. Okay, gotcha. So he's doing
Yeah,
an expose on crowdfunded games. Okay, that makes sense.
yeah. And so he people tell him about games to go look for. I'm like, another game that has the from Kickstarter to court is the Day of Dragon story. So he goes out and he investigates and researches
Yeah,
these
well,
games.
it's yeah, again,
Yeah,
there's a lot of fallacies to be pointed out when you actually haven't been uh
yeah. He
part of that.
actually, and yeah,
So anyway, let's
yes.
continue on here.
Okay, click and play again in 3, 2, 1, play.
Issue with this being, of course, once a developer is incentivized to sell items within the game, they are also incentivized to design the game to be worse for people who do not purchase said things, and this was exactly the direction that was scaring off the initial hardcore fans who flocked to the project solely because of Lord Rich's involvement. He claimed to be the saviour to return the once hallowed player-first experience in the genre, and it was now becoming clear to all that was never going to happen. Instead, it seemed like it was money first. Despite this, development continued and millions of additional funding was pouring in from players, who were admittedly enjoying the game thus far, as well as the promise shown for the continuation of progress. The game was of course never incredibly popular in terms of online users, but full release would be expected to fix that. Before then though, the question of bankruptcy loomed in the minds of fans. A website appeared seeking additional funding, presented from Richard Garriott himself, claiming to be selling stakes in the company via a platform called Seed Invest. The first issue was that for Seed Invest to accurately represent the company to potential investors, they needed financial data. Players discovered this data and immediately pointed out the issue. Despite over $10 million being raised by this stage, the company currently had $528,000 remaining, with a monthly burn rate of $230,000, giving them just over 2 months remaining before the well would run dry and the company would have to cease operation without raising additional funds. With this being the case, perhaps the Steam reviews were wrong and time would not bring them a finished product. Maybe they'd just run out of time instead. Richard Garriott immediately went on the press tour, speaking to Kotaku and clearing up what he called confusion. The money they were trying to raise was not to prevent bankruptcy, but instead to allow expansion of the company. Portalarium, according to him, always had roughly the same money in the bank and generated enough in revenue each month to essentially remain even, which could be believed if that was the only issue. However, it wasn't. Instead, keen-eyed fans started to point out that the Seed Invest portal displaying Shroud of the Avatar to potential investors was full of, let's say, mistakes. That's a very polite way to put it. Many users pointed out that the pitch displayed technology and features that simply did not exist. Richard also addressed this, though he openly admitted to there being some what he called inaccuracies. In essence, this pitch was using incorrect information in order to try to draw in additional funds from a community who had already given more than they should, but luckily this time knew better. At the same time, he was hoping to draw in unsuspecting investors who simply didn't know what they were being sold and how it was partially a little bit of a lie. Richard, of course, told fans not to worry. But what else is he going to say? Everybody panic, we're out of money, and we're gonna have to release the game right now, which they did. Full release arrived on the 27th of March 2018, and this
Go
time
ahead and pause.
I can say that the Steam review score is more.
Yep.
So that way we can talk about the Seed Invest real quick. Remember, Seed Invest raised $1 million, and also Portalarium at the time said, no, that money's going to be used for advertising to us. Wasn't to expand the team. It was going to be used for advertising. You remember that?
I don't, because, again, when Seed Invest came out,
Yeah, we both looked at it and said no.
I looked at it. I consulted my financial advisor. He says, "Are you going to be able to get rid of those like you can get rid of your other assets if you want to?" I said, "No." He says, "Get the fuck out of there. Don't even think about it, touching it with a 200-foot pole." Because there was no liquidity in Seed Invest, and of course, if
No. And
you
the
threw
Series
money at
B are
non-voting
non-voting
stock,
stock.
yes.
Yeah.
So again, and people may wonder, but yes, I do have financial advisors at my disposal to answer questions like that. And while I may not be a rich person, we do have people do that stuff. So as let's just call it. I'll just leave it as it is. But I spoke to my guy, and my guy said, "Don't even think about touching it. If you can't liquidate it, you don't want to be in it." And that was all I needed to hear. All the other stuff that I spent money on, if I want to sell one of my property deeds, I can liquidate those and sell them. All well and good. But stock in non-voting shares that you never got physical paperwork for, and that you couldn't sell to somebody else later on down the line or trade on the open market, well, don't even think about it, was basically what I was told. Waldo, thank
Hi,
you.
Waldo. Thank you.
Have a good workout.
Yeah,
Say,
but
say
it
hello to
is
the
one
missus.
where, yes, the fact that it pointed out that they were burning through $230,000 a month, which is something that we knew before that, but that was privileged information that we weren't to disclose. but after the seed invest, that coming out in a public document, I really didn't remember the features that Richard said were in the game that weren't actually in the game, and I'm glad that
They
he
were
did
talking
point out
about
that
taking over towns, which were not actually possible, and
yeah,
laying
the
siege, which
control
was the
points
Kabbalist with
actually doing
control
things.
points.
Yeah,
Yes, so it wasn't
it
so
was like
much as
half truths, half truths.
it wasn't full disclosure, but it wasn't technically lying either. You could and
Yeah, it was
Richard
half truth, embellishes.
sometimes embellishes a little bit on things, which is what makes him such a great storyteller. And I mean, I can listen to Richard talk about some of his stories. Yeah. See, like choices and consequences that was mentioned earlier in the
Yeah,
video. I forget whether it was yesterday or the day before we were talking about this, and
yeah,
yes, there aren't as many choices and consequences, uh, especially in our eyes, Jack's and mine's, that we assume there would be. We assume that there would be a lot more than just like the Clink quest and
yeah.
the what is it, the Jack of Diamonds? Is it? It's only really
It-
like
it- they were supposed every single decision that you made was supposed to have a real uh exposure to whatever. And that $230,000 a month, you have to remember that there were 30 employees slash contractors. And yes, the staff was gutted, but that was the burn rate before the staff was gutted.
yes. Now I still firmly believe that had they not stopped drinking and continued to do their live streams, they would have had a really great revenue stream to this day. But the day that a certain somebody who shall remain nameless, Chris, decided
Yeah.
that they should be more family oriented, and they should start putting disclaimers that there might not be, and started doing all that bullshit. Listen, we knew what the audience base was for this game when we built it, because most of them were middle-aged people like Jack, myself, and many of you
Yeah.
folks out there. There weren't any
And
teenagers or kids throwing 500, 1,000, 2,000,
oh
$10,000
yeah.
at this game. Okay, there
Well,
was no
that not
teenagers
not
throwing hundreds of
yeah,
dollars at this game. Okay.
not just that, but it is one where you look at the games that have come out recently that most of them will have full nudity as an option. Like Baldur's Gate 3, my entire party, when they're in camp, are naked. You can see labia, you can see pe- penis. So you've got vulva, you've got penis, you've got character romances where, yes, they do cutscenes. The same thing
No,
happened
no,
with
no wonder why
Cyberpunk
you're playing Baldur's
2077.
Gate so much.
I,
Now I get
I
it.
have romanced. I'm working on the third character to romance right now.
Yeah, tell them what you did the other day. You took over a toll point where you were
Oh,
making gold.
no, well, no. Like that's one of the quests is to go into the toll house, and I convinced
And get cookies.
I somehow passed this charisma check or deception check to actually say that I was there to replace the toll and the existing mob exploded and tossed gold all over the place. So I was just picking up gold
Oh, okay.
all over the place. Yeah.
I thought you were
But
able
it,
to charisma the NPC into believing that anybody you
oh yeah.
passed paid the toll to you. Okay, I sort of
No,
took that out of context.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But there are like so many different things that yes, you have to write every single thing. The problem with Portalarium, how many writers did they have on staff?
One, and they weren't even a writer. But
Yeah, that was Lum,
yeah.
and he spent a year writing the conversation system. So it's like, that's not a good use of his time. It's like, you have to write all of these things, and you actually need multiple people to write these things. So you
The
need a
Maynard
lot of
is
writers.
gonna get himself a streamer bundle.
Oh.
Yeah, but you didn't get that, did you?
Yeah. Well, Axe is getting one from me, so there you go. Reopened now and mailing it off in game. But yeah, it is one where it's like the like, even if we like talk about like the layoffs that did eventually happen, they fired everybody in the art department but one. They fired everybody in all of the other departments except for one, except for Chris's team. Chris's team was untouched.
Well, I don't know if I would say that, because there really isn't a team anymore.
Well, then,
Yeah.
I mean that was all the back end people. But then after that, like they quit and left for other jobs because you see whatever. But you ready to go back to this?
Yes.
And the reviews post launch.
Ready to click start.
Click and start in 3, 2, 1, start.
More in line with what you would expect from Kickstarter to core, though likely still the best this series has seen to date. It's important to note, this graph with positive to negative reviews is misleading in that the numbers are also incredibly low, which is a much more telling figure than the split of opinions. For this next big thing game that was promised, only around 120 people felt the need to leave reviews.
Yeah, stop there
again. The game
again.
peaked out on
Okay.
launch day with 562.
Game peaked out on launch day with 562 concurrent players, which is only approximately 1/3
Steam
of the actual players, because not
But
everybody logged
still-
in through Steam, and he's not going to tell you this because he doesn't know this. Okay, just pointing that out.
Steam. So that's still only 1,500 users.
Still,
Whereas
I understand that.
Whereas what New Age, whatever that game you're playing, or occasionally New World had almost 1 million people.
Had over 1 million concurrently, but that was logged in through. Can you log in? Yeah, I guess I got that on Steam. Do I? Let me see. New World.
I mean, that's just Steam charts.
Right, but yeah, that's an Amazon game, which again,
it still has 14,000 users. Their all-time peak was 913,000. But
New World is Steam only. Okay,
yeah, but they're still averaging daily 14,000 at any point in time.
Yeah, which is again, yeah, that's abysmal. Considering that you almost had 1 million concurrents. Yeah, I mean,
well, that
still
was
not a lot better. Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, they're dropping. I mean, which is one where it's like, okay, this was released in October 2021, which means 2 years later almost, which means you need to release some sort of new content in order to get more users.
Yeah, see, therein again lies the rub. Is the days of buying a video game, owning a video game that's completely finished in a CD are long gone. You buy the game, you play the game, and you own the game, instead of you buy the game, it comes out in pre-release, and then you wait for update after update after update after update because the game is never finished, has really killed gaming in a lot of areas in my own personal feelings. Why again, I don't go and spend big money on a lot of games because again, what am I going to do? I've been sitting here waiting for episode 2 for almost 5 years now. And I finished episode 1. I've got all the all the requirements done for episode 1, and I'm not going to do every scene as it's released, only to find myself at the time of release of episode 2 at one scene left and then sit there for another 5 fucking years. So I'd rather just wait now. And yeah.
Well, Dwip does think. Do you think the biggest problem was lack of advertising for a Lord British game? I think that there was. I think that is one of the issues initially. The fact that you can't attract players specifically through word of mouth unless you can see, like, just go to Twitch and go check out like the charts on Shroud of the Avatar.
Yeah, I got to point something out to Conjure a Dragon here. Conjure a Dragon, when you went out and bought SimCity on a CD, was it finished or was it not finished? I'm talking about a game that came on a disc that you bought and you put in, and there was no online requirement. You bought the disc, you played the fucking game. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, when you had a game that you bought that was already packaged and you owned it, and there was no digital bullshit like on Steam. Okay, the Steam has had a problem, and that's why they have this big lawsuits going on Steam, because people have bought games and then Steam has decided to remove those games from the library, and the people who bought and owned them no longer had access to them because they didn't actually have a physical fucking copy. I'm talking about a physical copy where you own the game, and Red Troll says they did patch. Not many of them. Again, I'm talking about a game you bought on CD that was a plain standalone, no online required. That's what I'm talking about.
You have Shroud on a DVD.
Yes. But I have Shroud. You have a Shroud installation disc on DVD. Yeah. You can't install the game from that. It just puts the installer that then goes online. Same thing for World of Warcraft, the installer, and then you go online. Same thing for Ultima Online. You bought the installer. Yeah, so I'm talking about the days where you bought a disc and you put the disc in and you own the physical copy of the actual game. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but it is one where it's like
Okay, I can understand needing patches for bugs, but there wasn't more content. There wasn't more, it's not finished. It was just patches to fix problems with the game. Still a different story of what I'm talking about. You know, there were several games that came out like that said, hey, if you need this, you can go online, make yourself a disc, put it in, and that'll fix the problems of bugs and the game not working correct and things like that. But they weren't adding additional content. They weren't expanding on it. They weren't not fully fleshed out systems. They were just patching things that didn't work properly. So, you know, that's what I'm referring to when I'm talking about that. You mean I can't play from the CD? No, you can't.
Nope.
But anyway, let's continue on here.
Okay. Click and play again in 3, 2, 1, play.
2 players. Less players than on average play random Ultima Online private servers, even though that game released in 1997, and this in 2018. Shroud of the Avatar at this stage had raised easily over $15 million from over 50,000 users, but less than 600 of them were logging into the service concurrently for what was claimed to be the biggest day
over $15
in the
million.
history.
I don't think Shroud has hit $15 million yet.
Yeah,
the maximum crowdfunding I thought was $12 million.
12 million plus seed invest plus money over time. You got to understand that anything that's being sold in the Crown Store still goes towards income. So yeah, if every year we're selling 200,000, that still gets added on every year. So,
okay. Yeah,
and I thought we were I thought we were closer to 18 million from what I recall, but that's again semantics here. Some sites still list Shroud as the second largest crowdfunded game in history, where other sites dispute that. So,
okay, We're clicking play in 3, 2, 1, play.
The full release finally materializing. Unfortunately, this is also where things started to get much, much worse, which shouldn't really have even been possible, as things were already kind of rock bottom for the game and the fans. Richard, however, was keen to explore the unknown as he did previously in life, so at this point, he felt that rock floor beneath him and started to drill down, aiming for the Earth's core instead. Kickstarter physical rewards that had been sold over 4 years ago were still not fulfilled. No one could get an answer, and the game was still missing promised features from that same Kickstarter page. Founders of the company were leaving, such as Dallas Snell, who was there from the very beginning. The company had already faced one round of layoffs just 2 months after the game had launched. And now the man who was the face and voice of the entire project, Richard himself, stepped down as CEO. Fans of course felt like this was a literal slap in the face for all those who believed in him, those that were fans of his games for up to 4 decades. It was really a very, very confusing turn of events, especially when Garrett reached out to publication MMORPG.com to inform them that he did not resign and that they as a company had just decided to remove the term executive from all roles, especially considering his was the only one that was ever on the website in the first place, and technically all companies are required to have a CEO on paper. Whatever the reason, he now didn't consider himself CEO. This raised many questions. Who was in charge? What could make Lord British give up that role? And how could this be a good direction? But most importantly, what did this mean for the very near future? Fans of the project who had supported it with tens of millions of dollars as a combined effort, mostly due to Richard himself, didn't have to wait very long to get answers to these questions. A few days later, the buy-to-play game, lauded as the future of online multiplayer role-playing games, announced their transition to a free-to-play model. A surprise to absolutely nobody, and perhaps a chance to draw in some much, much needed fresh blood. Unfortunately, as with almost everything besides raising money from naive fans, this did not work. Looking at the Steam data for active players, you wouldn't even know or notice that the game had opened up to hundreds of millions of potential Steam players to flow in for the low price of nothing. The free-to-play launch saw the player base gain roughly 50 average players. This, along with the constant mismanagement of expectations, led to the next dose of bad news. Travian Games, Shroud the Avatar's publisher, dropped the game from their roster, leaving the game entirely without publisher support. 3 months later, and a constant decline in fan opinions, Portalarium faced their second round of layoffs. If we remember back, Richard Garriott claimed that the seed investment...
Yeah, see, now I love how he pulls this one video, which was just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, video, because this video was just from the Lord British birthday stream where you can see actually Justin and Vesper on it with Lord British. This video is just very, very recently here. Yeah, and why does he decide to pull that now? I don't get, but continuing on.
For the second round of layoffs.
Yeah, I don't get it. But anyway,
well, that and he hasn't discussed the selling of the game to Catnip Games Chris Spears actually
coming.
being
That's coming.
Okay. Or Chris Spears is actually the CEO on paper.
Yeah, that's. I don't think he even goes into that, but yeah, that's coming up here next. So
Richard
let's go
no
ahead.
longer CEO, but Chris Spears is now the CEO.
Yeah, but now, hold on. Well, since we're going to go down that line, the official word from Richard was that they were paying people, and anybody who is listed as a corporate executive, CEO, COO, had to take a paycheck. And by getting rid of those names, that meant Richard could not take a paycheck so that more money would go into the game. That was the official explanation.
Hold on. I'm going to remind you that, and other people in the audience, that Steve Jobs, when he was the CEO of Apple, for a long time had a salary of $1.
I understand that. Again, I'm just telling you what the story was. The story was also that Richard only took minimum wage most of the time he was there instead of taking a big salary, because again,
that's the story.
But this is the
Yeah.
story. Yes, exactly. Just remember that the story was, what the actual truth was. I don't think any of us will ever completely know,
Oh,
except
hell
for
no.
those of us who have lived through it and have pieced together our own uh,
Interpretation.
interpretations of the story. Yes. So, okay,
Okay.
ready to click
So
start again?
play in 3, 2, 1, play.
Portal was to raise money to expand the team. By this stage, there was almost no team left, and just how mismanaged was this whole project, as they were now firmly in the death spiral. If they couldn't stem the bleeding while having more staff and a publisher, what could they hope to do after losing both? But that strangely wasn't even the worst part. When Portalarium upsold their game's features in order to raise funding with actual shares of the business, these people who purchased them were official investors, which should have afforded them protections as well as access to financial records and reports. After all, they apparently now owned percentages of the company. According to these investors, however, they were being stonewalled, or more accurately, ignored entirely. Multiple investors were in contact with the Seed Invest platform, and Seed Invest were constantly reaching out to Portalarium. But there was no response, as well as there were absolutely no financial records being disclosed at all. These people, who by law should have been involved, were as much in the dark as the original Kickstarter backers, who had absolutely no protections at all. And it wasn't just investors or players who were left without light. The Securities and Exchange Commission also failed to receive a report from Richard Garrett's Portalarium. Somewhere around this time, the company also closed their physical offices, claiming that this was just a temporary move. But as you could guess, it was not temporary. In fact, Portalarium announced a few months later that they had sold the entirety of the company, the game, and assets to a brand new company called Catnip Games. Fans quickly searched the internet to find who Catnip Games was, and they discovered something strange. Chris Spears, who was the previous president of Portalarium alongside Lord British's leadership, was the CEO of Catnip. A very confusing turn of events, essentially completely removing Richard Garrett's business from the equation, despite it existing solely due to his own involvement. From there, it would be getting into the weeds to continue discussing Shroud of the Avatar, as the game has floundered without massive developments, although seeing some updates, and exists almost entirely for the disgruntled fans to make fun of or question what happened during each subsequent controversy. Fans did, however, get some answers as to where Richard Garrett had gone after wasting their money and abandoning them. He went to the same place as other once legend but now fallen from grace game developers from beloved days gone by, straight to the blockchain. In August of 2022, fans discovered, without surprise but with disgust, that Richard was developing an NFT cryptocurrency game. The title was revealed as Iron and Magic. Luckily, as I write this video almost a year later, Iron and Magic has mysteriously vanished, much like Richard's involvement in the future of online role-playing games and the respect of his longtime fans. Catnip Games and Chris Spears claim Shroud of the Avatar is still being fully supported and will be going nowhere, but anyone familiar with the project should probably know better. The game will continue to go where it has been going since the initial early access release in 2014, and that is down. Down further and further until it is closed for good. After all, it's impossible to trust the word of people who have repeatedly proven themselves untrustworthy. Many legendary game designers and developers find themselves exactly where Richard Garrett now exists. Time and time again, they tarnish their legacy by trying to relive past glory and prove either to their fans or to themselves that they still have what it takes to roll back the years and change history again. Rarely, if ever, does this go to plan. The most often result is a headline that makes gamers collectively groan in unison, typically with the once greats of the industry dipping their toes into the sewer that is blockchain gaming, chasing the trend of what outwardly looks like greed or vanity. Hopefully Richard leaves his legacy alone from now and goes back to being remembered as the pioneer of the RPG and the MMORPG genres. But the last game in his legacy will go down as an abject failure, a game that has no right to really exist, as it was willed into existence on reputation alone. Sky-high expectations, which delivered nothing but disappointment, limping along now, exhausted, pretending that things are okay, waiting to be put to rest, just like its creator's legacy.
Okay, so
hopefully never to be
over.
seen again.
I wish that for the Demeta thing, he had also mentioned that Chris Spears was also at Demeta with Richard for the development of Iron and Magic.
Yeah, as exploring the possibilities of a game and not releasing a game and closing down a game is one thing.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
But I do have to comment on one of his closing remarks, which is we have actually released a game that was willed into existence by us, the backers. It wasn't willed into existence because of Richard. It was willed into existence because many of us decided that it was worth our time and investment to actually build this game, first off. Second off, because we've willed it into existence and we released with $15 million compared to the 600,000 over $500 million that Star Citizen has raised and still hasn't released a fucking game yet. I think we did pretty fucking good, personally. Now, again, we know that that things are still just rolling along, and the servers are still rolling along, and there's still income coming in, and it doesn't cost a whole lot to run these servers, and it's still being financed by us. So well, not many of us, but still there are some of us who are still putting money into this game, although very little compared to what we would be had Chris allowed it to continue on the way it was supposed to go.
Soda Whiz. Yes.
Soda Whiz with the sub. Congratulations.
But yes, thank you. But it is one where it's like, yes, we do have a game. They are still trying to do things, but realistically, they need to have someone come in with $10-20 million. So hopefully someone that won the lottery really loves Shroud of the Avatar. And then kick off a solid year of development with a brand new spanking team and redo a bunch of shit. And this is like the comment about Chris, like saying that he's going to rip off Band-Aids related to shit and never really changing anything. And having shit direction for a bunch of things like artifacts. It's like, yes, these things are silly. But Laz, you know how much time we have left?
We have enough time to talk about the giveaways we're about to do and talk about somebody's birthday coming up tomorrow. So we may do something interesting tomorrow, or we may not. More likely than not, but maybe you guys will see your way to helping us play some marbles on Fruck Awesome Friday tomorrow.
Maybe.
Give us a break from the daily news, but I got plenty of news out there to talk about, some other good stuff, but I knew that this video would take us a couple days to get through, so it did. It took us 3 days to get through it.
Yes. But it is one where it's like, yeah, it's a hit piece. Yes, there was stuff that was factually correct in it. There was stuff that was very open to interpretation. Our interpretation is different than the Kira's interpretation. And that's what
I wouldn't say it's vastly different. I just wanted to point out some of the fallacies and some of the things that he didn't touch on, or what's the word I want to say? He did not touch on for whatever reasons. There's a word I'm looking for, just escapes me right now, but
well, I mean, it would have been nice if he'd reached out to us for our interpretation of a bunch of things.
Yeah, the guys who have been doing the news
and
have lived through this whole thing, it would have been nice, but he intentionally left stuff out is what I was looking for. He intentionally left stuff out, or intentionally bypassed some of this for his own views, as it may be.
Yeah, but I mean, he does have a structure that he does with each of those videos, and sticking to
Yeah.
that structure probably did not afford him
Photo is we just
additional
did that over
commentary.
3 days. What are you talking about, buddy? We just did over 3 days.
Hey, yeah.
You think we should sit down and do like a video like that? I don't know. That's
Well, I mean, it's like I have still never posted a review of Shroud of the Avatar, and if I did, it would not be a happy thing, because, as he discussed, like early on, all the majority of the or a lot of positive reviews were based off of,
we're too
hey,
pro Shroud of the Avatar to interview for that piece.
yeah, uh, would be, hey, there were a bunch of promises. Those promises have not been fulfilled, and that's why you end up with a negative review. But Laz, it's that time for us to close some giveaways.
Yep, I'm doing
I've
that
gone
right
ahead and
now. Lomir's getting
closed mine,
himself the streamer bundle giveaway. So congratulations,
but
Lomir. He's sitting right
Jigoku's
next to
getting a
me.
copy of Out of Space, and Axe got a streamer bundle.
And I will pull the final game key giveaway here in just a moment. Lomir, go ahead and take that.
Yay.
And we will close out the streamer game key giveaway. And White Tusk Rex, you have won. And let's see what you're going to get yourself a copy of. You're going to get yourself a copy of 10-Second Ninja X going out to you.
Yay.
So congratulations, and thank you all for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow for the birthday stream right here on NBNN. Until then,
Yay.
I'm Laz.
I'm Jack.
And we are NBNN. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you all tomorrow.